that others have followed your inspiration and done the same thing. Dr. Sharad Kohli, senior economist, also with us on the program. Dr. Kohli, what should we do with Turkey and Azerbaijan? In fact, Operation Sindoor should have a softer extension towards Turkey and Azerbaijan. India should be using its softer stance to make Turkey realize that this is a country that represents 1/5 of humanity, and that 1/5 of humanity has a chunk to contribute towards your economy as well. And if they decide collectively without any kind of a push from the government, Dr. Kohli, it is going to be a problem for a country which relies heavily on tourism for its GDP. Dr. Kohli.
Good evening, Vineet. Good evening to my fellow panelists and the Newsx viewers. I think about the delusion which Prashant spoke about, I would say, Dil Belane ko Galib Khayal Acha hai. They can live in an imaginary world. They can probably keep imagining that they won all the wars and all the operations and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's their problem. If they feel happy about it, it's purely their problem. As far as Turkey is concerned, we were doing business, Vineet, with Turkey of about $10 billion until last year. When I say last year, I meant 23-24. And in 24-25, surprisingly, because of Turkey was showing signs of being anti-India, the business went down anyway. It came down to $7-8 billion. And by the way, we have got a trade surplus with Turkey because Turkey needs more of our products than what we need from Turkey for that matter. And when it comes to CAIT, the organization in India for traders, which has more than 6.5 crore members in it, they decided to boycott, which means all the traders decided we are not going to. So it is not just Prashant. Prashant's efforts are indeed laudable. But then the traders who do send a lot of stuff, from chemicals to machinery to mineral oils to a lot of things we are sending to Turkey, they decided to stop that. And so does the import, apart from the marbles that we import from Turkey. We also have some fruits and vegetables, some fancy fruits coming here into India, for that matter. We are happy not consuming them. But what is more important is to send them the message. On tourism, Vineet, the total amount that Indians spent there was about 3,500 crores. By the way, this is only 1% of total Turkish tourism revenue. Now, it may be a very small amount, but what matters is the message we want to send to them that, look, and by the way, this was growing by about 20% per annum. A lot of destination weddings had started happening in Turkey because of the low cost and so-called beautiful surroundings and all that, Istanbul and Ankara, all these cities, they had some fancy locations where the Indians were doing destination weddings, which was becoming recently a huge revenue for Turkey. And why did I say huge revenue for Turkey? Because for Turkey, it matters. Inflation in Turkey is known globally. In fact, when we do case study on inflation, Turkey is one of the countries we named at 84% inflation. Even today, inflation is around 50% plus. The Turkish lira has lost about 1,400% in its value. So falling currency, high borrowing cost, it's a messed up economy overall. So that is where it hits where it hurts the more. If we hit a country economically, you impact the larger population. You don't just impact the military, the armed forces or the government. You impact the common man of Turkey, which is what exerts pressure on the Turkish government that, look, what you're doing something is not correct. By supporting countries like Pakistan, by supporting the perpetrators indirectly, and by standing with Pakistan, you are indirectly getting into terrorism for that matter. So I think that is where it hits the most. As for the tourism, I'm sure there'll be more cancellations, and a lot of people are going to Azerbaijan, Baku, and Istanbul were one of the most sought after destinations in the recent past. In India, a lot of things happen by word of mouth, and the same word of mouth will now spread for discouraging people from going there. So I'm sure both these, Azerbaijan is minuscule. We are exporting about $90 million. We import about a couple of $1 million. So as far as trade is concerned, Azerbaijan doesn't even exist, for us. But Turkey, yes, from 10 billion to 8, 7, 8. And now I'm sure the next step the government of India can take is putting trade embargoes on Turkey. We stop importing and exporting to Turkey. That is where it's going to hit hard, because some of the essential things which is importing from India, and most importantly, the world needs India more than India needs the world at this point. As Prashant rightly said, 140 crore, it's a huge market for any country. Anybody who wants to go international, I think, should be looking at India first. Look at the kind of middle class we have, more than the size of America. In fact, now double the size of America. So I think Turkey as a country is now going to get the message that, look, if you mess around with India, this is what India can do. And this is only going to get worse now. It starts with tourism, boycott by CAIT, but then you will wait and see that now you will see that government of India will also step in at some point. I'm not saying it's happening, but as an economist, I'm suggesting that a trade embargo can also be considered in the times to come to hit these countries where, as I said, hurts the most beneath.
Pathak